Hi, welcome to the second installment of my 1/64th scale custom build series. I said in my Jeepers Creepers video that I was working on the car from the 1977 horror movie of the same name. Well, I finally got it done. The car was designed by the legendary George Barris, and it was built from a 1971 Lincoln Continental Mark III. When you're building a die-cast vehicle from scratch, it always helps to start with the closest match you can find. Johnny Lightning made the same Lincoln, and I had just about decided to place an order when I ran across this Adventure Force car for $1 at Walmart. It looked like a Dodge Charger, but I'm not really sure what it was. And it didn't have interior seats, but that didn't matter because you can't see inside the 77 car, and my doors weren't going to open anyways, so it was just as well. But the body on the yellow car was close to the car's design, and most importantly, it already had a chopped top, which the Johnny Lightning did not. That was one less thing I had to do, so I went with this car. Here you can see I drilled the rivets out and disassembled the car. I ground the sides down as flat as I could and ground some off the hood and trunk. With the car's unique body design, I knew I had my work cut out for me. Since I had to drastically change the front end and the rear, and the sides had to be basically as straight as a gun barrel, I got the idea to wrap the car in a piece of tin shaped as much like the car body as possible. This would strengthen the Bondo and bulk up the sides. After several attempts at drawing a pattern, this is what I came up with. I then cut this pattern out of a piece of tin, and after attaching it with JB Weld and with sheer luck, I actually got it to work. Here you can see I got the basic headlight shapes I wanted, and the car was lengthened a good 3/8 of an inch. Of course, working with tin, you're going to bend it all out of shape while you're trying to make it fit, so I had some Bondo repairs to do. I kept building it up till I got it good and straight. Here you can see I taped off the middle V design of the hood and applied putty. Taping off the design helps you get a putty buildup in the right places. Then you sand and shape it. I noticed my back window was much larger than the movie cars, so I taped off the hole and drew the size I thought it should be. I then applied the superglue baking soda mix to close in the gaps. Then I very carefully started sanding it with small makeshift sanding tools. Seems like about every custom job requires you to make a specific tool for a specific task. And here was my new back window opening. The plastic window piece itself was embossed to fit precisely into the body window cutouts, so I had to very carefully sand and shape the back glass to fit the new cutout. Oh, I almost forgot to mention the grill. I had to find one. So I robbed one off this Matchbox 33 Willis street rod. I'm glad the old jalopy could still be useful. As I've said before, there's nothing like the first coat of primer to help you find all your imperfections, and I had plenty. But after lots of sanding and shaping and several more coats, the car finally started to take shape. Now it was time to tackle the bumpers. For the front bumper, I cut 3 pieces of Carter keys, bent them into shape, and JB welded them into 2 separate pieces of tin. The hardest part was cutting 2 tiny pieces of tin for the front bumper guards you see here. The back was much easier. Again, I JB welded 2 pieces of Carter keys, glued to a single piece of tin this time. To attach the front bumper during assembly, I cut 2 grooves on each side of the grille. This was so I could glue the middle tabs I designed in the bumper into the grooves. I did the same thing at the ends of the quarter panels for the rear bumper. This worked fairly well when it came time to put everything together. Very little super glue, if any, actually touched the new black paint. Next, it was time to cut the door lines in the sides. Since both sides had a good amount of putty buildup, it was fairly easy to cut the lines in. I did it with a straight edge and the end of a uniball pen. Most of the hood lines were already there, but I did have to cut the line in the front. That was not so easy, but I managed. I also attempted to cut better trunk lines, but I never could cut a decent line in between the 2 quarter panel fins, so I just forgot about that idea. It's better to leave off something than to make a mess of it. Now it was time to paint. To hold the car, I just bent a piece of tin and drilled a hole in it to line up with one of the car's screw holes I tapped earlier. Then I just screwed it in place and held the piece of tin with vice grips. This is my poor man's paint booth. In my shop I have a square hole cut in the door you see there with an air filter in place. The electric floor fan you see is turned around to pull the filtered air through, and that creates a wind tunnel, if you will. Just before I paint, I wet the floor down in that area and turn on a heat lamp. I did it this way when I was painting my Awana cars years ago, and it worked great in keeping trash from getting in the paint. Here's some shots of the black base coat, and here's some of the clear. I used to do auto body work, and I had a lot of success using real auto body base coat clear coat on my 7-inch wooden Awana cars. Working with a much smaller scale vehicle this time, I was worried that this thicker automotive clear would fill in hood lines and such. So I thinned my clear down more than usual and sprayed the first coat. Of course, you put it on heavy enough to give it that wet look. The first coat looked good. It had a nice shine and you could still see all the body lines. Well, I had to push my luck and give it one more coat. In doing so, the clear filled in what trunk lines there were, and although they were still visible, it made it harder to see the hood lines. I cut the door lines fairly deep, so you can still see those with no problem. On the plus side, I did get a nice deep-looking shine that I really wanted, so it all worked out. Then it came time for some detail paint work. I chrome painted the wheels, in which case I robbed off this particular Hasbro NASCAR. I thought the new set of wheels resembled the car wheels quite nicely. I used these two nail heads as headlights. I first painted them white, then painted the silver centers, then glued them in. I painted the 3 chassis screws black to make them blend in better on the bottom. I painted both bumpers chrome. And the grille, which I taped off first, then painted, then very carefully superglued both bumpers to the body, and completed the final assembly. And here it is, my 1977 horror movie classic, The Car. Please like and subscribe and hit that notification button so you won't miss any of my upcoming videos. My next 1/64 scale build will be the 1960 4-door Impala from Jeepers Creepers. Thanks for watching.